Well then. Hey.
Howdy.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm Mason.
And you're tired. And this is Once Upon a D20's beginner's course on dungeoneering. Welcome to yet another round.
We're more than overjoyed to have you. Today we'll be talking about a young lad by the name of Bilden Musgraven, who is going to be our first ever druid that we are going to build along kind of with you guys in yet another pursuit of walking through the character creation process with you. We hope that this will be of use to you. Many a person has recommended the druid class, and rightfully so. It's an amazing class.
It's got everything from kind of a broad range of support. It has healing. It has melee and tanking kind of capabilities along with it. The type that we are planning to go for today is more of the castery type. Right here, you can see we've got our forest gnome. Gives him a little bit of a bump to intelligence. The forest part of the gnome also gives him a bump to wisdom, which is our key ability score here. Along with that, you get your gnome cunning that gives you advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic. So like a dragon's frightening presence, it doesn't work against. But if that dragon just happens to have magic and tries to like dominate you, then you do have advantage. The very natural dark vision that so many races get. Natural illusionist giving you the minor illusion cantrip, but intelligence is your spellcasting ability for it, so you don't want to be too low on intelligence or your illusions are going to look like cartoons. And then
Yep.
the one that we love for a druid, we love this last one, speak with small beasts. Through sounds and gestures, you can communicate simple ideas with small or smaller beasts. Small and tiny are those size categories. Forest gnomes love animals and often keep squirrels, badgers, rabbits, moles, woodpeckers, and other creatures as beloved pets. So if you're one of those people who really enjoys to just have a little menagerie traveling with you, maybe you don't want to use them for combat because they're your preciouses and they are actual animals and not familiars that are just going to poof and you can resummon them. No, these are your real boys and girls. And, you know, I don't know about non-binary animals. I'm not that smart about that sort of thing.
Me neither. But you can talk to animals, and that we do know. That we are smart enough for. Pressing on to the druid portion. As a druid at level 1, you get special hit points, just like everybody, right? You get d8 plus your constitution modifier in the case of level 1, maximum number 8 plus your constitution modifier. You also get your choice of 2 proficiency of the druid. You can either have Arcana, Animal Handling, Insight, Medicine, Nature, Perception, Religion, and Survival. So, Jer, I would propose for the classic archetypal druid. I almost said wizard for a second there.
These are the
I
most
don't know why.
castery of the druids we're going for, but
This is true. This is the nature wizard that we're going for here. But nonetheless, odd. Anyway, going for the most archetypal of the druids, it seems to me that either animal handling, nature, or perception, or survival. Those are the 4. Those are the short list that I would give for the archetype. Which of
then
those do you think?
between those 4, nature and perception. One's survival more because they're out there in the wilderness doing what they do to
Doing
live
the
and
life.
survive. Nature and survival kind of partnering together. Focus camera I swear, I'm not moving that fast. I'm not the Flash. So we got nature and survival. Going down the line, there is Druidic, the secret language of druids. You can speak the language and use it to leave hidden messages. It's very much just like Thieves' Cant, in where it is a secret language only known to those who are in the know, but it's even more esoteric, where there is actual kind of writing to it that is completely beyond that of a normal language. Thieves' Cant, you use, I'm using common Thieves' Cant. I'm using Draconic and Thieves' Cant to issue this. This is beyond any other language. And if you leave a hidden message, you or others who know this language automatically spot such a message. Others spot the message's presence on a successful wisdom perception check, but can't decipher it without magic.
For those of you who are interested in such a thing, Monarch's Factory, aka the illustrious Dale Kingsmill, has an excellent, beautiful, amazing video, typical of her excellent repertoire of D&D material that she has created, that really takes on an interesting interpretation of how to kind of flavor your use of Druidic, because oftentimes this is very mechanically interesting, but also puts a little bit of a responsibility of flavor on the player or on the dungeon master. Dale kind of, I think, helps quite a bit with that. So, recommend giving that a look-see. Next up, at level 1, druids do get spellcasting, particularly Circle of the Land druids maximize that, but all druids do cast spells. Level 2, though, they get one of the defining aspects of the druid class, one of the defining differences, which is the wild shape feature.
Going through wild shape, it's a little bit convoluted, but it simplifies itself as you level. Down in the early levels, you get 2 wild shapes, and you have 2 all the way through until you reach the pinnacle of druidity, the archdruid status of level 20, and then you can use those all the time without number. The wonderful thing about it, though, is that it's 2 wild shapes per short rest. Don't forget, you can burn them both and then take a quick breather, but only if you have time to do a quick breather. Going down, you can transform into any beast that is a challenge rating of 1/4 or lower that does not have a flying or a swimming speed. That becomes very important because once you hit 4th level, you can do something that has a swimming speed, and then once you hit 8th level, you can get something that has a flying speed as well, also at those levels, jumping up to 1/2 CR and 1 CR as you go up. It gives the example of a wolf at level 2, it gives the example of a crocodile at level 4, and a giant eagle at level 8. Those are great. Wild shape is a lot different than your polymorph spells, because most of the time when you polymorph, all of your stats get completely replaced by the new form. You get dumber or sometimes smarter, depending on exactly what you're turning into. With this, you retain all of your mental stats, so if you are very wise, very intelligent, very charismatic, you keep those, and then your physical stats get replaced by those of the form. And then you also take on that form's hit points, and so those layer on top of your own. You can't cast spells or speak or take any actions that require hands unless your beast form has hands. But if you cast a spell beforehand that requires concentration, you can cast that spell, maintain concentration, and into something that's got a little stronger constitution.
Put a little extra oomph behind your gorilla's punch, if you will. Pressing on from wild shape, at level 2, we do also get to select the druid circle of our choice. Druid is one of the classes that you get to choose your subclass at, not at the typical level 3, and in this particular instance, instead at level 2. Today, since we are pursuing kind of the archetypal druid, particularly the archetypal forest gnome druid, it only felt fitting that we would pick the Circle of the Land specifically for forests, right? All of you who have not purchased subclasses on D&D Beyond, you should have access to all Circles of the Land. This is just the one that we felt was more kind of fitting and archetypal for this particular character. As a result of this choice, at level 2, you do get an extra cantrip, which is quite nice. I'm going to say Shillelagh. What do you think about Shillelagh? It's one of the classic druid cantrips.
Shillelagh is always a strong choice because while you might not focus on your physical stats as much as a caster druid especially, if you ever get into melee combat, being able to take your magical staff, your magic wand, perhaps if your DM lets you flavor that into some sort of club instrument, you shillelagh into it, the top of it kind of knots up a little bit, and you can just start bopping heads with your wisdom modifier, both for attacks and for damage.
It's also so useful because, druids don't get to use metal stuff, right? As part of the druid class, as part of that connectivity to nature, metal, specifically refined metal for weapons and armor and things like that, is a symbol of civilization. And so druids, it's not, I think that the consensus is that it's not that druids cannot, it's that druids will not, because they are not of that world, if that makes sense. And that, makes it so that a fair number of weapons are not as available to druids in 5th edition. So having that shillelagh, making it so that you can have a little bit more versatility up close is nice.
And of course, the ever coveted magical weapon is what your shillelagh becomes while you have that minute of whacking things. And it's a cantrip, so you can keep it up. The next step down is our natural recovery feature. Now, you might remember from Wizards that you were able to take one of your short rests and recover some of your spell magic. That is exactly what this is, except now it's a druid.
A bit of meditating in the wilderness does a druid some good,
And then going down to the circle spells, as you can see, there's a bunch of circles: the Arctic, the coast, the desert, the forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, and underdark that they cover here. We picked the forest, so right here at 3rd level, we'll get Barkspin. At 3rd level, we'll get Barkspin, because I'm looking at Spider.
Barkspin.
All right.
It's a top made out of tree, and you just spin it, and it entertains your enemies enough that they don't attack you.
You hit it with your shillelagh, and it magic stones at them. Moving on.
Yep.
At 3rd level, we get Barkskin and Spider Climb for our 2nd level spells that are always prepared and never have to occupy your spells known. But we're going to go all the way up to 5th, so you're going to want to see that Call Lightning and that Plant Growth. 2 spells that actually work very, very well together if you are able to slow your enemies down and then look up at the sky and be like, oh, what's that?
Yeah, to see a druid call lightning is one of the most beautiful things in D&D, I think.
Shout out to my boy Jack in my Friday night, Saturday morning. Well, he's in Britain, so it's 7 in the morning for him. He has a Firbolg, a big, friendly, smiley boy with a long red beard and blue fur, and he's all smiles, a couple of teeth missing, real chill dude. And then they get into a fight, and his eyes start to arc lightning, and his beard kind of pulls in a little bit like Fat Thor and kind of straightens out, and he just, oh, okay. Love him.
It's good stuff. It's a beautiful thing to see. Pressing forward further down the line beyond circle spells at 4th level, as we did mention, you do get that wild shape improvement. And then additionally, you do get that classic ability score improvement at 4th level, just like everybody else. But before we decide on what we are going to do, let us, as per usual, go and check out the different stats that we have available to this particular player character.
In our rolling beforehand, we actually got fairly decent, almost equivalent stats. So you'll see the top row has got our 15, 15, 14, 13, 11, and 10, which is pretty strong. And then we have 16, 15, 15, 13, 13, and 9. One of those keeps us all at least positive or at least neutral in our ability score modifiers. And then the other one gives us a little bump higher, but also a little drop lower. Mason, where should we go?
I would vote let's go for the second. I like having, a little bit of a lower score on the one end and also a little bit of higher scores on the other.
Well, and where are we putting that number 9? I think for the most part, if we're going for someone who's been out in the forest a lot, is an acolyte of nature, they probably aren't super good at talking to people, probably don't have
That's
a super
fair.
strong personality, so I think we should drop it into charisma.
That sounds great.
But then on the flip side, since we are getting that +1 in wisdom, one of those 15s perhaps can go into wisdom and then even it out up to a 16.
Agreed.
Where should we put the other 16?
I am thinking, and you let me know what you think on this, but I am thinking the other 16 could go into dexterity, right? Gnomes are so frequently very dexterous, nimble creatures, prancing and skipping about, as it were. And I feel like that's pretty fitting here.
That gets him where he's going. To give you that same kind of strength of dexterity, we should drop 1 into Constitution, the big 15, so that he's got at least a little bit more going on for him. Then that leaves
Agreed.
those 2 13s into Strength and Intelligence, giving us our layout of Strength 13, Dexterity 17, Constitution. I was wrong. It's intelligence and dexterity, not intelligence and wisdom.
Ooh, then we
Ooh.
should definitely swap the wisdom and the dexterity for sure.
Sometimes your DM can be wrong. So let's switch out which one?
The wisdom and dexterity. So
Wisdom and
wisdom
dexterity.
gets the 16 and dexterity gets the 15.
All right, wisdom and dexterity. There we go. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Yep.
All right. 13, 16, 15, 15, 16, and 9. As charisma sometimes goes. But now, with those scores, do we want to bounce up the wisdom modifier, the constitution modifier? How do we want to balance this wee man's out?
We could put 1 into Constitution and 1 into Strength if we wanted a bit more of a meaty druid. But for the classic druid in the wilderness, communing with nature first and foremost, it seems to me like the best move here, flavor-wise, is to put both of these bad lads into our Wisdom and bump that up from a +3 to a +4.
For a castery Wizard of the Trees, that does seem to be the way to go. That puts us back up to an 18 wisdom, and not too shabby anywhere else, as long as he doesn't have to talk to too many people. As we move into the Acolyte background, you can see we have Insight and Religion as the skill proficiencies, kind of a wee lad of the Church of Nature, whomever's church that might be, but he gets an extra language. No, he gets 2. Where should we put those?
Well, I would say one of them should be Sylvan, right?
Sylvan.
Classically, kind of the language of the trees, you know? Feels very fitting
Not
for the
even
forest now.
not even just the trees, but that barrier between, you know, wild nature on the material plane and the Fae, and the Fae very often speak in Sylvan. And then the other side of that, as they're going to be an acolyte of kind of the god of nature, perhaps speaking celestial to the gods as well. Kind of that bridge between, the Fae and the celestial, right there in the middle, where it all kind of meets together.
Magnificent. As an acolyte, you also gain access to the Shelter of the Faithful, which makes it so that you command the respect of those who share your faith and can perform religious ceremonies of your particular deity or faith tradition. You and your adventuring companions can expect to receive free healing and care at a temple, shrine, or other established presence of your faith, though you must provide any material components needed for spells. So this makes it so that you can kind of expect some common courtesy from other individuals who share your particular faith tradition. Uh, it does not say that they will lay on their swords and die for you. So do keep that in mind, as it has been seen that characters can sometimes, from time to time, try and, for lack of a better term, weaponize their background and the groups that support them.
The other side of that is you also get to, you yourself get to enjoy a modest lifestyle within the order. You are taking care of your, you can, get your clothes mended, get a really good hot meal, and you may also have a very specific temple for which you attend. And if you serve or used to serve there and remain on good terms with it, you can actually count on the priests there, whatever they may be, providing assistance for you. That is, again, like Mason said, not hazardous to the temple, not hazardous to the priest. You're not trying to like call in a favor because you've got some dirt on them. It's, appealing to their goodwill and their good nature, pun intended.
This does also bring in like a potentially interesting story situation that characters can find themselves in. As Jared mentioned, your standing with the temple does impact the way that the temple interacts with you. And so, what if the temple asks for you and your adventurer friends to go do something for them? What if they are in desperate, dire need, right? Now there is this kind of further connection that might mandate a little more action than you'd want usually. Or what if maybe you've accidentally insulted the high priest of your particular temple? There's a lot of potentially interesting flavor that you can pursue here, and potentially some deep and interesting stories.
Our constant mantra here is talk to your DM, work with your DM, come up with a story together that will further both the DM's plans and your own.
That all being said, let us press on to equipment. Like we mentioned, druids generally do not use a lot of metal weaponry or equipment. As a result, you can have access to a wooden shield or any simple weapon. Jer, I would vote that wooden shield.
Absolutely. A shield can be the difference between getting smashed and not. Very often, already he has a dexterity of 16, and then that 3 plus the one from his leather armor that he gets down there, plus the wooden shield, becomes an AC of 16, which, especially in the early levels, is really nothing to sneeze at.
Pressing on to the next, you either get to choose between a scimitar or any simple melee weapon. Some of you may be saying, wait a second, isn't a scimitar made out of metal? Oftentimes, yes, but this scimitar's blade could be made from stone, right? That has been chiseled into the correct shape. Or it could be made from, a sharpened bone of some kind, or what have you. Does not necessarily need to be metal in order for it to be lethal. That being said, between these two options, Jer, I would propose that we go for the scimitar as well, since it is kind of the classic 5th edition druid weapon.
You know what? I like it. I've seen scimitars used to great effect. They're also light weapons, so if you end up having a scimitar in one hand and, say, your druidic focus staff in the other, you can take that staff, still tap it on the ground, do your little shillelagh thing, and up, hop, hop, as they say.
Yes.
Which brings me
Yes.
to the choice of druidic focus. We have, and you can't see it, but we have a sprig of mistletoe, a totem of some sort, a necklace, an earring, something, a wooden staff, a yew wand. Those of you who are in the know of druidic-y kind of things, yew wood is especially magical in several ways, or a generic druidic focus. So let's go with the staff so that we can use the cantrip that we gave ourselves.
Classic. Classic. On down to the Acolyte equipment that we get. We get to choose a holy symbol as well. I would propose, Jer, let's use an amulet, which could be kind of that totem type amulet.
Exactly. Something else just kind of adorning them. A prayer book is, my inclusion into that. And then, of course, incense, vestments, common clothes, and a little bit of money to work with. We've got
Magnificent.
this fellow kitted out. Now, here at the end of all things, let's make sure he's got the leather, the shield, the scimitar, and the wooden staff isn't showing up here as a weapon, but work with your DM. Very often you can just stat in a quarterstaff in place of it. But for our Wizard of the Trees, as I've referred to it, let's go back to spells.